Hi, this is Stephen Beschloss with America, America.
And I'm Mark Jacob with the Stop the Presses newsletter.
And this is on target. For a change, we have something nice to say about the New York Times, specifically the editorial board, specifically an editorial is called A Playbook for Standing Up to President Trump. And it's a clear, concise, strong message to universities, to law firms, to other American institutions that tells them that capitulation is a bad idea. And it offers, as the title suggests, a playbook. I'm going to read a couple of sentences from it. Just to see how they very clearly set up the idea, and then share those 3 points that are part of this playbook. In his attacks on law firms, universities, and other American institutions, President Trump is relying on an illusion. The illusion is that institutions are powerless to fight back and that they face a choice between principle and survival. These institutions do not have to capitulate to Mr. Trump. They have a realistic path to defeating his intimidation. Now that's a good strong summary. It's a useful call to arms, and it's followed up by 3 points. One, in this playbook, recognize that capitulation is doomed. It doesn't get you off the hook. It just keeps you in the game with this guy. Two, insist on due process. Recognizing that there are real procedures in the law that are the ways in which you can push back. And three, pursue solidarity rather than abandoning the responsibility to your competitors. Pursue solidarity. You either are going to hang together, or you're going to hang
Yeah.
separately. So what do you
Right.
think?
And with the universities, I mean, they cooperate with each other on many things. They're used to it. And
Right.
so why can't they band together here and put up a solid front against what is clearly a campaign of coercion,
Right.
intimidation? And same with the law firms. Law firms know how to fight. In fact, they've actually had initial successes in court. The law firms that have had enough courage to stand up to Trump, as is pointed out in the editorial. So it's not like, and one thing I really like, Stephen, in the editorial was that they say that these kind of authoritarians like to create a sense of inevitability. That
Yeah.
you can't win, you can't win. You must submit.
You're just at their mercy.
Right, and that's a myth. That's just not true, and they like to give you that illusion so that you don't fight back.
Right.
And this editorial and people of goodwill are saying that we've got to fight back, that we can't surrender these major institutions to an autocrat.
Yeah, and look, I mean, there have been hundreds of law firms that have stood up with those who've been attacked with these executive orders. That has happened. But let's look at the case of Colombia, which had $400 million cuts in its budget from governmental congressional spending. And then capitulated with a whole series of reasons why they will work with this administration. Well, what's happened is in the last few days, Trump has followed up now by $1 billion cut to Cornell and over a $700 million cut to Northwestern University. I'm not saying that those subsequent efforts to undermine higher education wouldn't have happened, but boy, a message was told to Trump. Capitulate, and I'm going to just keep. There are many others that will just keep going along with this same process.
Right,
They're believing in the intimidation.
and as editorial points out, Colombia didn't even win a real agreement. All they
Mm,
want is that they would continue discussions. In
right.
effect, in effect, they have handed over control to Trump to approve departments and how they operate, to approve the policies of the university. I mean, it's they've made Trump like in charge of their university. It's
Yeah.
it's it's,
I mean,
it's a shocking surrender.
Right. And look, this is, this is where we are. The piece ends by noting, this is a time, it is a crisis, but it requires standing up to this abuse of power, and it requires courage and action. And that, that couldn't be more clear. I think we're seeing a division right now between courage and cowardice. And at least the New York Times is like asking, those who are in this crisis to make a decision. Do you want to be courageous or do you want to be a coward?
Right. And as far as the law firms go and their agreement to donate what they call pro bono services to Trump, I mean, this is not charity work. Trump's not going to ask them to try to get innocent people out of jail or anything. In fact, he said the other day that when he was boosting coal as the future of this country, he said that he was going to use these law firms to fight regulations. So, in effect, these law firms are going to be cooperating with Trump to try to make our air dirtier. I mean,
Yeah,
this is once you've kind of given into this, then you've signed on, you've climbed aboard the Trump train, and you're in deep trouble. And
yeah,
you're working against the best interests of our country.
yeah. And look, the other thing is that I think about it in the context of what's been the principle of don't negotiate with terrorists.
Right.
Because it'll just hasten their continuing bad behavior. Well, this is the same thing. Don't negotiate with Donald Trump. It only gets worse.
Right. Right. I think that's a good way to end, Stephen. Thank you so much. Nice to
All
talk
right,
to you
we'll see you
again.
next time.
Right.